Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Film Brits podcast. I'm your host Trilby, the Seto Kaiba of film criticism, and thank you very much for joining me on the podcast today. I'd like to thank, of course, all of my patrons who help to keep the lights on here on the Film Brits podcast. If you're interested in helping out, you can go on patreon.com/Trilby to find out all of the perks and rewards that you can get for being a patron of the podcast, including getting many of your questions answered and your topics read out on the show. And this is going to be one where we're going to be talking about the massive trailer BANANZA that dropped over the past week, because even though we've still got a bit of 2016 left, we just cannot wait for this year to be over. So a lot of trailers for summer 2017 blockbusters have been dropping like flies over the past couple of days. More like the past week. I'm going to be going over the past 7 or 8 days, just talking about some of the bigger trailers that are going to be coming out. But first, we need to share the love, because 2016 has been a pretty poor year for many people, but for one person it has actually been a very, very successful year, and this guy needs no more support, he needs no more praise put upon him, but I'm going to do so anyway, because this past week on my website, www.trilby.com, I reviewed his latest movie, and he's very vocal on Twitter, so I just thought I'd give him a shout out. I'm going to be talking about Taika Waititi, who is a New Zealand film director, who this past week I reviewed his latest film, Hunt for the Wilder People, which is based off of a Barry Crump book, Wild Pork and Watercress, a book I've not read, but I love that title. And his latest film, Hunt for the Wilder People, was the most successful New Zealand film of all time this year and last year. It's done incredibly well. And it'll be coming out on DVD and Blu-ray next month, I think, at some point in January, so I highly recommend you check it out. But you can watch it on Amazon Prime, or Amazon Video, sorry. You're able to download it for about £7 or £8, at least in the UK. I don't know what it's like in America. Maybe it might be on Netflix or another streaming service. But basically, Taika Waititi, the one reason you need to be ahead of the game and knowing exactly what this guy is all about is because next year he's going to be directing his first major Hollywood blockbuster, and it is, of course, Thor Ragnarok, the Planet Hulk. It's kind of movie which is also going to be a Thor, the end of the Thor trilogy. It's going to have Tom Hiddleston, Chris Hemsworth, Idris Elba, Mark Ruffalo, of course, and basically a contest of champions meets Planet Hulk meets World War Hulk meets all of these awesome stories from the comic books, and they're all going to be colliding in this awesome spectacle. And Taika Waititi, he is not someone like say Gareth Edwards, who made a genre film in Monsters and then went on to make another Monsters genre film with Godzilla. This is someone who has done some very small scale stuff. He created some short films and then burst onto the scene with some Sundance independent films like Eagle vs. Shark. It's not about what you think it's about, and also Boy. But what many people really know him, his first breakout film was him co-directing and co-writing and co-starring in the mockumentary What We Do in the Shadows. And Taika Waititi is basically the definition of an auteur filmmaker. He's worked from the ground up, short films to feature films. He writes, directs, and stars in his own material. In fact, Hunt for the Wilder People has got one of his best roles ever as a minister at a funeral, and it's such an awkward piece of comedy that you just can't help but laugh at it. And he's a great actor, great director, great writer, and I cannot wait to see what he does with Thor Ragnarok. There are two types of people in this world. There's the type who are looking forward to Thor Ragnarok because it's another Marvel Cinematic Universe film, and those who are looking forward to it because it's directed by Taika Waititi. Now, I highly recommend you watch his films, What We Do in the Shadows and Hunt for the Wilder People. They are on DVD and Blu-ray, and they are easily available outside of New Zealand, so there's no excuse to not check them out. They're awesome films, by the way. But you can also follow him on Twitter at Taika Waititi. That's TAIKAWAITITI, Taika Waititi. Follow him on Twitter. Awesome guy, really funny, always tweeting fun stuff. Yeah, that's all I've really got to say. Just share the love to Taika Waititi and check out his films. The guy, he's going to be the type of guy who you'll regret not having him on your radar earlier if the first film of his you see is Thor Ragnarok next year. So yeah, that's one awesome film to be looking forward to in 2017, but of course we have all of these trailers from the last week, and this is going to be in no particular order. I'm not going to be talking about them in in terms of anticipation, or how much I liked the trailer, or even what order the trailers came out. This is just going to be a random order, so let's go for Baywatch first. Now, I have no attachment to the Baywatch franchise. I've not watched anything of the TV series. I'm aware of its legacy. I'm aware of its iconography. I'm aware of David Hasselhoff and Pamela Anderson and the iconic slow motion running sequences. My biggest exposure to the Baywatch TV series, and I think there was maybe a TV movie during its peak as well in the 80s or the 90s, was in the film Borat. When the main character Borat becomes obsessed with Pamela Anderson and tries to kidnap her and make her his wife. Now, the film's coming from director Seth Gordon, who doesn't have the greatest track record, but he has done some pretty unexpected films, like Horrible Bosses and the King of Kong documentary, which is the critically acclaimed documentary about the King Kong arcade game and these guys who are just trying to compete to become the world champion King Kong player. But then you've got films like Identity Thief, and he also executive produced Pixels, so guy's not doing incredibly well recently, so let's hope that Baywatch is going to turn things around, because I actually like the first Horrible Bosses film as well, and of course King of Kong is really good, but Baywatch, all eyes are really going to be on the talent up on screen, because they are incredibly beautiful people. And the thing about Baywatch is that you get this, like, David Hasselhoff, maybe he was hot shit in the 80s, maybe all the women were queuing around the block to meet him, maybe everybody loved David Hasselhoff at the time, I don't know, but a lot of that superficial sex appeal from Baywatch has come from Pamela Anderson, but I think with this one, it is equal opportunity sexy. Everyone in this film is incredibly good looking, looks incredibly great in swimwear, including Zac Efron, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Alexandra Daddario, all of these stars. So I saw loads of people in the comment section saying, oh, feminists are just going to be hating this film because it's just glorifying all the women. Like, dude, The Rock is in this, and Zac Efron looks like he ate the previous Zac Efron and just absorbed his power, like Dragon Ball Z Perfect Cell style. The guy is ripped because he's been working with the Rock in terms of his workout routine. Everyone in this film looks phenomenally sexy, and this is coming from a straight guy. Okay, so this looks like it's kind of evening the playing field, so to speak, in terms of just making everybody sexy, everybody attractive. This is a Hollywoodified Baywatch film. There's a lot of explosions, action sequences. It wouldn't surprise me if a lot of the footage in the trailer was from dream sequences or fantasy sequences, where maybe The Rock is like, oh, I want to be a great lifeguard, and then he falls asleep at his post and he dreams about doing these awesome heroic stuff. I don't know, that's just how it read to me in the trailers. But what we have here is actually a really funny trailer. I think that obviously they may have put the best jokes in the trailer. It's always really hard to market a comedy film if you only have a couple of recurring jokes, and maybe for films like particularly Paul Feig films like Bridesmaids, it's hard to market those films because they are full of extensive improvised conversation sequences which are hard to cut down and put in a digestible trailer. So who knows how the end result will turn out, but based on this first trailer, there's a lot of cool action shots. Like there's the shot of Zac Efron on the bike and then he jumps into the water, and you see the camera guy actually go over the railings as he goes off the motorbike. That's a really impressive action shot, and you don't expect a director like Seth Gordon to have those sort of action chops. This guy's only worked in the comedy field, and it looks like he's acquitting himself to action quite well. And the jokes really hit hard. Of course, it ended on that killer "you people" joke and the fist bump with The Rock and that other guy in the police department. Everyone here looks really funny. They look like they're having a really good time. I don't think that Baywatch is going to be making my top 10 most anticipated of 2017, but it looks funny. I like the look of everybody, quite literally, and I just had a good time watching this trailer. This seemed like a really fun time at the movies, and hopefully the end result is going to be just as impressive. I just hope that it's going to be a lot of fun. I do not speak as a Baywatch fan or someone who has watched any of the series, so maybe fans of the show are really, really pissed off that it's going down this route. I don't know. I don't know if there is a committed Baywatch Reddit community or something. I don't know. But from where I stand, this looked like a really fun trailer. And of course, after The Rock, he's been picking his projects really, really well. He's even producing this one as well. He is creatively involved, and we'll get to that in a little bit as well, in terms of the fate of the Furious. But this guy, right at the moment, really can't do any wrong, and he's going to be putting 110% into the film, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Baywatch has to offer when it opens in May 2017. Next up, we have the trailer for Michael Bay's Transformers: The Last Night, and I'm expecting the movie to be terrible. I'm just going to get that right out of the gate. The Paramount Pictures have done an incredible job of marketing these films. It's basically like the Transformers cycle. You watch the movie, and it's terrible, but then the trailers for the next one come out, and it looks awesome, and you get hyped and excited. And then the reviews come in, and you just think, no, those people, they just hate dumb action films, and I just want a dumb action film, let's just ignore the critics and go and see it. And then it turns out that they were right, and the movie is just absolutely garbage, and then you just go into the cycle again, like, oh, the last Transformers film was terrible, and, the trailer's amazing, so let's go watch it, oh, the critics hate it, let's go, oh, it was terrible, but then the trailer for the next one's amazing. This has broken the cycle, in that this is actually a pretty weak trailer. Of course, the special effects look solid, and Anthony Hopkins can narrate the phone book, and it'll probably make it very engaging. But I think this trailer is trying to be like a Marvel or DC trailer, where it shows like the upending or the flipping round of the conventions of the series, and expecting us to care because of that. But for Transformers: The Last Night, because we have no attachment to these characters, because we have no attachment to their legacy or their story arcs or their characters, the final reveal of Optimus Prime attacking Bumblebee and trying to stab him in the face carries no weight. This isn't like watching a trailer for Captain America: Civil War and watching Tony Stark and Steve Rogers go at it. Because we've grown attached to those characters. The reason the MCU is as successful as it is not just because of the action sequences or the spectacle, it's because we've grown very attached to these characters over a long period of time. With Transformers, you don't have that attachment to these characters. Like, even the film's most ardent defenders will probably wouldn't be able to tell you any of the character arcs or any of the emotions that the Transformers have been going through over the course of the past 4 films. So when you see Optimus Prime attack Bumblebee, there is no this doesn't have to end in a fight, Tony moment in Transformers: The Last Night trailer. This is a film that wants the audience to respect and admire its iconography, but it's done nothing over the past 4 films to give it iconography. And that's why this trailer really, really fell flat for me. There's some interesting concepts like the Transformers being around during Arthurian times and Excalibur and also the Nazis and everything. But outside of those ideas that weren't really well represented in the trailer, you've just got a trailer that just feels like it's just full of all flash and not even good flash. I guess, with the exception of the shot of who we're going to guess it's Unicron, the massive planet-sized transformer eating the moon. Outside of that shot, there was really nothing to offer in this trailer. Like, you get previous trailers for the Transformers one, so you get Optimus Prime smacking Grimlock across the face and him falling to the ground, or the shot of Devastator sucking up the sand, or in Transformers Dark of the Moon, Optimus arriving with the jetpack and just destroying all of the Decepticons in the street. You don't get a money shot like that, at least in terms of like the visual spectacle. And it's trying to rely on the emotional connection that the audience have with these characters, but because it's done nothing with that, it's kind of like they think they've earned this. They think they have earned this moment of Optimus Prime becoming a bad guy, but let's also not forget that in Age of Extinction, Optimus Prime said, I'm giving you freedom, let me lead you, you will protect my family or die, which is the opposite of freedom. That happened 1 movie ago. So the fact that Optimus Prime is becoming a bad guy and trying to kill Bumblebee is not enough of a stretch. That is something that happened if you've not seen Age of Extinction. Optimus and the Autobots show up at the Dinobots' hideout, and he's like, I'm trying to save the world, I need to save our kind, so I'm going to beat you into submission until you do as I say. I'm going to give you freedom. You will defend my family or die, which is an exact quote. And it's absolutely stupid and terrible, and because the Transformers The Last Night is coming from the exact same creative team, and it's got a really weak trailer, I don't see much hype occurring for this film, at least until another trailer shows up and gives us more of the spectacle that fans are more looking forward to, or at least more of Anthony Hopkins or more of Mark Wahlberg, because that's clearly going to make everything better in this franchise. I don't know. I was expecting to hate the film but like the trailer, and I just feel so underwhelmed by the trailer, and I still feel like I'm going to hate the film, that I just kind of feel really unfulfilled watching it. I don't know. But let's just talk about a different trailer. Let's talk about another trailer that has a very similar theme to Transformers The Last Night, but I think this one is more deserved, at least in terms of what the franchise's core fan base is after. And that's the trailer for Fate of the Furious. It's actually the reason I delayed this podcast for a day, because I knew the trailer was coming out on Monday, so I just thought I'd delay it by a day so that trailer could come out and I could talk about it on this. Now, this is the 8th installment of the Fast and Furious franchise, and it's finally answered the question of who is fast and who is furious. And now that the title of this is The Fate of the Furious, we now know that Dominic Toretto's group are the Furious. They are not the Fast, they are the Furious. And now, why did it take 8 films for us to figure this out? I'm partially kidding. But for this film, we've got, very similar to Transformers The Last Night, it reveals that Dominic Toretto has betrayed his family, has betrayed his friends, and is now working with the criminal mastermind Charlize Theron, who's playing Cypher. And obviously, with the trailer and the film, we know that Dom is going to be actually working as like a double agent. He's going to betray his friends to get Cypher's trust, and he's going to be romantically linked with her to try and get close to her and bring her down from the inside, possibly literally, depending on how the sex goes. But it just feels like I'm not hugely committed to this franchise, but it has a very passionate fan base. It has to have a passionate fan base in order to get 8 movies, with the last one grossing over $1 billion. A movie that got a very diverse cast and has a very diverse fan base and a very diverse audience. So you have these very committed fans who really latch on to these characters as family. So when they see Dominic Toretto pull his car over and knock Dwayne Johnson's Luke Hobbs off the road, it means something to them. It doesn't mean much to me, because I only really see this franchise as awesome car chase spectacle. I don't even like the first 4 films. Like the first 4 films, Fast and Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious, Tokyo Drift. It's the first 3 films. The first 3 films, they're not that good. They're really not that good. It's mainly when Justin Lin came along for Fast and Furious 4, as well as Fast 5, which was directed by, give me a moment, who directed Fast 5? Justin Lin again. It was when it left the street racing roots of the franchise and started being more about car heists or car action sequences, or these guys whose superpowers is getting into cars. And when, of course, The Rock arrives, and he's got the awesome line in the trailer for Fast 5, like, don't ever let them get into cars. It's awesome stuff. It's stupid, it's fun, but it knows what it wants to be. It wears its heart on its sleeve in terms of its cast and its attachment to these characters. And when Paul Walker passed away, it meant a lot to the franchise. It meant a lot to its fans, because Paul Walker was with it from the beginning and was an integral part of the franchise, the franchise of the Furious, if you will. And when you see that the family is breaking up, and even the tagline on the recently released poster is "Family No More," it probably means something, not to me, and I can basically see the plot and the twist coming from a mile away. But it looked fun. I don't think anything will quite top the plane crash sequence from Fast and Furious. Is it 7 or 7? They all blend together. I don't think anything in this trailer will top the safe sequence, or possibly the plane sequence from one of the previous ones. But the submarine, That's a step in the right direction. And I find it funny because there was the recent controversy surrounding Vin Diesel and Dwayne Johnson apparently not getting along on set, and how they would get into arguments, and apparently Vin Diesel wasn't pulling his weight behind the camera or in front of it, according to The Rock. And then the trailer basically opens with Vin Diesel running him off the road. I thought that was funny. It's got that additional context, which I think makes it it's more like life imitating art, possibly. Kurt Russell is back, Michelle Rodriguez is back, and also someone who I didn't even know was going to be in this film until the trailer came out, Jason Statham, because he's a really fun villain. He was really good in the past films. I think it was just in the one film. No, it was his brother, Luke Evans, and then Jason Statham's like, "You thought my brother was bad." That was the worst Jason Statham impression of all time. I didn't know that he would be in Fate of the Furious until this trailer dropped, and then they break out of prison, they're about to fight, and then it turns out Kurt Russell orchestrated this so that they could try and fight back against Dom. But I'm expecting a lot of fun and cheese, like the sequence in the trailer when Dom is in the middle of that crossroads and his friends come along and basically restrain him in the middle of this crossroad, and he manages to break out of it by taking the door off and then driving straight on and causing him to flip over. That's inventive, it's fun, it makes sense in its own hyper-reality Fast and Furious universe. And while, very much like Baywatch, I'm not hyped for the film, this is not going to make my top 10 most anticipated of the year by any stretch, but as long as it stays to its intentions, as long as it stays true to itself, as long as director F. Gary Gray is able to get in the headspace of Vin Diesel and the rest of its cast members who have been with this franchise for a very long time and basically know how this formula works, then we're going to be in for at least a good time. I think the worst case scenario for Fate of the Furious is that we're going to have a good time. And when that is the worst case scenario, I think you've got yourself a very pretty solid film right there. So let's talk about the next trailer, which is possibly the biggest one of the past week. The trailer for Spider-Man Homecoming. And there were two trailers, and I prefer the international trailer. Because the conventional, normal, domestic American trailer that played on the Jimmy Kimmel show, it was more focused on Peter Parker's high school stuff, which I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the John Hughes inspired high school sequences, which director John Watts and all the screenwriters have been saying was a direct inspiration. Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, all of that. I'm looking forward to that. It just doesn't make for as much of an interesting trailer as, say, the Vulture and the Shocker appearing, and Spider-Man having to hold a freaking boat together with his web. I think, some things just naturally translate better to a trailer, and a trailer is what I'm talking about in this podcast. I think that the international one, which showed more of Michael Keaton's Vulture, was a lot more interesting. If Michael Keaton is in fact the Vulture, I think it's recently been confirmed, but part of me just thinks that Michael Keaton, the man who was the Batman, one of the best actors working today, who has had one of the best runs as of late. He worked on some pretty weak roles with, say, Need for Speed or RoboCop, but then, bam, Birdman, bam, Spotlight, The Founder, Spider-Man Homecoming. He's probably going to get Oscar nominated for The Founder. This is going to be the third major Oscar film in a row that he has done. Spotlight and Birdman and now The Founder. This guy's on a roll, and he is a legitimately talented, fantastic actor. And to waste him on... maybe The Vulture's going to be awesome, but when I think of Michael Keaton, I think of maybe Norman Osborn. I hope that we're going to have maybe a twist, like, say, maybe the Vulture is an early version of the Green Goblin, or maybe you never actually in the trailer see Michael Keaton in the Vulture costume. You see him talking to people, and then you see him out of the costume, and you also see the Vulture all masked up, and it looks like a terrifying villain, and really intimidating stuff, a massive improvement from, say, the 1960s, 1970s interpretation of him in the comics. You never actually see Michael Keaton with the wings, with the talons, with the outfit. So maybe they are pulling a bait and switch, and I hope they are, because I would love to see Michael Keaton as Norman Osborn, or at least a more substantial villain like, say, Kraven. That would be really cool. But we also see the Shocker. We see what was his name? Is it Jacob Batalon? Who's going to be like Peter Parker's nerdy best friend who finds out his secret identity. I think that the trailer was a lot of fun. I think there was the inclusion of Tony Stark, played by Robert Downey Jr., was a really smart inclusion, and just the moments with them in the car I thought was really clever. How Peter thinks that he's reaching in for a hug, but no, it's just opening the door. I like to think that with Tony Stark, he would have gone in for the hug and also opened the door at the same time. Like he wanted the hug. I like to think that might have been Tony Stark, and he sees a bit of himself in Peter Parker. We'll see how that relationship plays out over the course of the film, and that is one hell of a money shot at the end. Once the music's playing, the Spider-Man Homecoming logos come up, and then you see Spider-Man and Iron Man swing and fly past the camera. That's an awesome shot. That's awesome stuff, and I just love that moment. So this is what comic book movies are made of. This is the iconography that resonates with people, not just, oh, let's just have one of the main characters of our franchise just turn bad, even though we've not earned anything from it, like Transformers: The Last Knight. So yeah, Spider-Man Homecoming, it was a fun trailer. I don't think it's the best one that's come out this past week, but I am very excited for the film. I'm looking forward to seeing what John Watts has got up his sleeve, because he's only really directed 2 films. He's directed Cop Car, which is like a low-budget car chase thriller done mostly in the desert, and also a horror film called Clown. I have seen neither. Clown is actually it's on my Netflix queue, and Cop Car is something I'm hoping to watch very, very shortly. I'll get it on DVD and check it out. I'm going to try and check both of them out before Spider-Man Homecoming, much like I watched Taika Waititi's What We Do in the Shadows and Hunt for the Wilder People before Thor Ragnarok, just to see what type of director these guys are, so I can hopefully get even more excited. So let's see what John Watts has to offer. We know that Tom Holland is going to be a great Spider-Man if his appearance in Civil War was any indication. The talent is there, at least on screen. Let's just see if John Watts and the screenwriters, the numerous screenwriters, can make this thing work, and if Sony can deliver literally their first great Spider-Man film in a decade. Because Spider-Man 3, good, not great. Amazing Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man 2 are pretty trash, and that is mostly thanks to Sony's involvement. So let's hope that Marvel is the one who is steering the ship here, and if they are not steering the ship, let's hope that Spider-Man can at least hold it together like he does at the end of the trailer. So the next trailer I'm going to be talking about is going to be let's keep on the Marvel route. Let's talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I wasn't expecting a trailer this early after the previous one. This one's still touted as a teaser trailer, which is interesting, even though we see a lot more footage. And the big takeaway from this is that Baby Groot is going to be the greatest thing ever. And yeah, it's hard to talk about this trailer because everything that is so great about it is just right there, front and center. The Fox on the Run music in the background, which incidentally it reached number 1 in the iTunes rock chart shortly after the trailer debuted, which is amazing, and just the power of a good of good music and a good trailer. But everything really worked with this trailer. I think this is better than the Spider-Man Homecoming one, but to be fair, Spider-Man Homecoming was the debut trailer, whereas this is the second one, so it's got more to show, it's more substantial by design, by its nature. Baby Groot and Rocket, just an incredibly fun pairing. And I like how there's even the shot of Rocket shooting all of those people, and Groot is on his shoulder as opposed to it being Rocket on Groot's shoulder like in the past film. That was a nice subtle callback. Drax is just going to be so much fun in this film, I can tell, just from that moment in the trailer when he embarrasses Star-Lord in front of Gamora, and there's that woman who can read people's emotions and minds by touching them. You must be so embarrassed! Do me! It's such a fun performance, and Dave Bautista, he's the first guy who will tell you that he's not a great actor and that he doesn't have a lot of range, but there's something about Drax and there's something about working with James Gunn that brings out the best in him, and he is so great in this role. I cannot imagine anybody else playing Drax. I honestly can't. I think if you got somebody just as physically imposing, like say The Rock, you wouldn't get the same sort of naivete from him. The Rock is too big of a personality, whereas Dave Bautista is humble enough, but also big and physically intimidating enough to pull off a character like Drax. And it's not often you find a person who can find that balance. And I think he was one of the big standouts from the last film. And bear in mind that Guardians of the Galaxy was a movie full of standouts. It feels like if anybody took a step back in this trailer, it was Chris Pratt as Star-Lord. That might be his before he lost all the weight in Parks and Recreations. That might be what you'd call him if he was in that. I don't know, something about these podcasts and talking at length and trying to find something to fill every second of dead air. Maybe it might just prevent me from saying words properly or saying words good. Chris Pratt, great as Star-Lord. He didn't have a lot to do in this trailer apart from just react to the nonsense that Rocket was feeding him, as well as him being very embarrassed at the end. But of course, I'm still looking forward to all of that. So, yeah, this is just another really great trailer. More great music. Hopefully in future we'll see more of we'll actually see Ego the Living Planet, or more of Nebula or Yondu. I'm just really looking forward to seeing how this movie pans out, and we don't actually have that long to wait. We have 5 or 6 months left, because this is coming out in May. I actually think out of all of the trailers I'm talking about today, this is the film that's coming out first. Let me just look this one up. This one's coming out first, because I've just checked the release date for one of the film, which I might as well talk about now that I'm on the Wikipedia page. The Mummy, which comes out June 9th, 2017. Now, for the Mummy trailer, it wasn't quite what I was expecting it to be. I was expecting more tomb raiding and more stuff in Egypt in the deserts and all of that stuff, but it seems like if the trailer is anything to go by, that is going to be over and done with in the first 5 or 10 minutes of the film. As the trailer, it feels like a good cold open for a trailer, to have it open on the plane and the mummy, the sarcophagus is tied down in the middle of this big cargo plane, and then this mummy curse brings the plane down. I think that's a good cold open, although it lasts way too long in the trailer. You could have got that sequence in about 40 to 45 seconds, whereas I think it's like a good minute and a half of the trailer. It's way too long for it to be a cold open for just a bite-sized trailer like this. But apart from that, there wasn't really a lot that stood out with this trailer. I don't think it was a bad trailer. I'm hesitant on this film. I love the idea of having a Universal Monsters cinematic universe, because it's not even the first time this has happened. The Universal Monsters franchises have been crossing over for almost an entire century. The Universal Monster franchise with Frankenstein and Phantom of the Opera, Dracula, Creature from the Black Lagoon, The Mummy, Invisible Man, Werewolf, all of these characters in the 20s, 30s and 40s, they were crossing over all of the time. Universal were basically doing the cinematic universe before it was cool. Decades, 70, 80 years before it was considered cool to do. Universal were already doing it. It was just their business horror mode. So the fact that they're returning to do that in this age of a cinematic universe is really exciting stuff for me. But there were 2 big red flags for me here. Number 1 is Alex Kurtzman, who is making his directorial debut here. Now, obviously, just because it's their directorial debut does not mean that they will do a bad job, but also remember that Alex Kurtzman is one of the people responsible for the terrible Transformers movies, the first 2 terrible Star Trek movies, and basically a lot of bad films that have been coming out over the past 7 or 8 years, such as Cowboys and Aliens, or The Brothers Grimsby, or Ender's Game. Because the guy's not got a good track record. I don't know what else to say about it. The guy does not have a good track record. It took the Star Trek franchise completely jettisoning the creative team in order to make it good again, like with Star Trek Beyond. And with The Mummy and this guy who has got a pretty poor movie track record. I'm told his television stuff is pretty good, like Fringe, and he was I think he worked a bit on Transformers Prime, which is actually not a bad TV show. But in terms of his films, the guy has just not got a good track record, and the fact that he is helming this first installment of this new Universal Monsters cinematic universe, it is very disconcerting. And secondly, my girlfriend is a massive fan of the black and white Universal Monsters films. Her favourite movie is Bride of Frankenstein. She loves Creature from the Black Lagoon, and Dracula, and Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, The Mummy, Mummy's Tomb. She loves all of those films. And she watched this trailer and hated it. She thought it looked absolutely terrible. She had a fun reaction to when the plane crashed. She was like, Tom Cruise cannot have survived that. And it turns out he does die, and then he comes back to life, which is a fun up ending. He technically did not he technically did die, but then he comes back. I think that this, if you're going to be trying to differentiate yourself from, say, the previous cinematic universe, or even like the Brendan Fraser Mummy films from like 13, 14 years, I can't even remember how long ago those were. Yeah, if you want to differentiate yourself, I think that this trailer needs to be doing a little bit more, and I think that you maybe need to be selling more Russell Crowe, who is maybe in like, a couple of frames of the trailer, just selling the fantastic talent that you've got in front of the camera, as long as, like, because the talent with Alex Kurtzman, it's not really behind the camera, so you have to sell the stuff that's in front of it. And I think that trying to turn this into like a big action cinematic universe is not a bad idea, but this trailer really didn't get me excited. I want to be excited. I want to anticipate this a lot. I really am rooting for Universal to make this thing work, because they're pulling out all of the stops in terms of talent. And I'm hoping that Sofia Boutella, otherwise known as Gazelle in Kingsman, or Jayla in Star Trek Beyond, who is proving herself to be a really great unconventional talent, I hope that she pulls out of the bag in as the Princess Amanat, or the mummy of the film. I hope it comes together, but this trailer didn't really give me much hope. And also, speaking of a complete lack of hope, but in a very different way, let's talk about the final trailer, and that's War for the Planet of the Apes, because this was a bleak trailer. Let's just first talk about the poster, where it's Caesar, motion captured by Andy Serkis, riding on a horse in the snow with the caption "War." That's it looks almost like a trailer, a poster that you'd get for The Hateful Eight, in terms of just the snow and riding on the horse and the red font. That was just a random comparison I had. But War for the Planet of the Apes, this is looking like a very bleak third installment for the franchise. And bear in mind that Dawn of the Planet of the Apes had some very brutal and dark and bleak moments, and this looks like it's going to be continuing that theme and those ideas. And I don't have a lot to say about War for the Planet of the Apes, at least in terms of the trailer, but I think that Woody Harrelson is going to be an awesome villain for the film. I think that it was a very well put together trailer. I think that it was a little bit cheesy to have the Planet of the Apes title drop at the end by, I think, was it Woody Harrelson who was doing the, I can't quite remember, but I think it was a little bit cheesy. But this is a very solid franchise. I don't think it's the best trailer of the past week, and I don't have a lot to say about it. But I think that this was a very solid, very strong first impression, and this will be a film that does make my top 10 most anticipated of 2017. War for the Planet of the Apes is... this whole Planet of the Apes reboot trilogy is proven to be... if this one is a great film, we have a really great trilogy of films. I think Rise of the Planet of the Apes is better than Dawn, but that's not to take anything away from Dawn, as that is a great movie, and hopefully War for the Planet of the Apes was able to pick up that torch or that baton and just continue running with it, because it's got the potential. The potential is there. I really am looking forward to War for the Planet of the Apes, even though I don't have a lot to say about the trailer. Or maybe I'm just sick of talking about trailers, because how many have I talked about? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trailers. So, yeah, I'm not going to rank them or anything, although I will say that I think the best trailer is, or was, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I think the weakest ones are either Transformers or The Mummy. And in terms of films I am most anticipating, it would either be War for the Planet of the Apes or Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So, yeah, that's my big trailer roundup bonanza for this past week. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take some Patreon questions. I'm going to be a little bit shorter in terms of taking the Patreon questions, because I took entirely Patreon questions last week, and I also got a lot of requests for the lightning round this past week. There was one commenter on YouTube who was like, "Good, I'm so glad he's not doing the lightning round anymore." I just took a week break, my friend. I am back with the lightning round. But first, Patreon questions. So the first question comes from Jerome Giolando, who asks, "Hi Will, my question is, what is your personal limit on how many trailers you watch for a movie? Does it depend on what kind of movie it is? How often have you gone into a movie you've been looking forward to completely blind? For me, I try to only watch at most one trailer for a film. So I've seen the Spider-Man trailer, but not the new Guardians trailer. Some movies I go to without seeing any footage whatsoever, like Arrival, which to me made the experience much more incredible." Thank you for asking the question, Jerome, and that's a very interesting one. I think, for me, someone who does regular film commentary, like on this podcast, and also does writing for websites like geekfeed.com, And when a lot of people will ask me for my opinion on certain trailers, I tend to watch almost all of the main trailers for all of the big films. I tend to ignore the TV spots because not many people talk about them, and also by the time that all of the TV spots start rolling out, the film is either about to arrive or is already out, so there's not really much to glean from them in my opinion. But in terms of the main trailers, mainly because of obligations to my job and my work, I tend to watch almost all of them. When there's stuff like, oh, watch the first 10 minutes of The Shallows, or here's a 5-minute trailer for Independence Day Resurgence, I'll stay away from those because I think that's overkill. And I think there's a lot to be said about trailers. I think that trailer editing and all the music and everything that goes into it, and just choosing the right clip at the right time and the best money shot at the end to hook audiences in, I think trailers can be considered a work of art, like a little mini tidbit, little masterpiece in 2 to 3 minutes. I think there's an art to making a good trailer. It's often hard to avoid trailers when you go to the movies as often as I do, because of course trailers will play before the film. 4 or 5 trailers often play before most blockbusters or most big films, so it's hard to avoid them. But in terms of avoiding trailers, I'll do that for some of the smaller films. Like, I didn't see a single trailer for Hunt for the Wilder People before I saw it. I didn't see a single trailer for What We Do in the Shadows. I was just told, watch this awesome vampire mockumentary, and I did, and it was awesome. For some of the smaller films, yeah, it's easy to avoid the trailers because there's not as much of an obligation, because not many people report on those smaller films, unfortunately. But it also means you can be blindsided and really surprised by them. Just trying to think of recent examples. Recent films I've seen, like I will, if there's a company or somebody's or people's work who I think like really excite me, like say Leica Animation, I'll follow the production of say Kubo and the Two Strings, basically as long as there's information out there, just to see what the progress is, because to see who's involved, and for a lot of the time it does get me more and more excited, and sometimes you get a lot of trailers for smaller films where, in order to hook people into watching them, they basically have to give away the entire plot of the film. Like, for example, say Bridget Jones's Baby, which basically gives away almost the entire plot of the film, bar the last 5 minutes. You'll get like films like Sing Street. Really, like, I don't think I really saw a trailer for Sing Street before. I just heard it was a great film. I saw the poster and heard the premise and watched or listened to 1 or 2 reviews and was like, yeah, bam, let's watch it. Green Room, I didn't watch any of the trailers for that. I was just told Patrick Stewart is a neo-Nazi villain and got really excited and watched it. And to be honest, I was a little bit disappointed. It changes from film to film, honestly. Like, sometimes a lot of it's got to do with luck. Like, if it was up to me, I probably wouldn't have seen a trailer for, say, Hell or High Water, but it had a big marketing push in the UK a couple of weeks before its release, so I had no choice but to watch the trailers. So yeah, that was basically it. Just thinking, like, when you get your high-profile Oscar contenders like, say, Carol or Black Mass, Bridge of Spies, and things like that from last year, just to name a few, it's going to be hard to avoid trailers for those smaller films, even though it might be best to avoid them, because those Oscar trailers tend to give away almost all of the plot. But sometimes it's just what you need to know about the film. You in order to know what you're getting in for, you have to watch the trailer, but the trailer will give everything away. It's a very delicate balance, and I think maybe some Oscar films would be better off maybe just selling the talent as opposed to the entire plot of the film, but it really does depend. So I can't really think of too many examples recently where I've just not watched a trailer, like deliberately avoided trailers and just thought to myself, no, I'm not going to watch anything. Basically, whether or not I watch a trailer depends entirely on luck and circumstance. I don't choose. It's whether or not I've seen the trailer before I see the film. I try and see as much as possible, so it is just luck of the draw. So, next question comes from Dean Jones. If George Lucas didn't write and direct the Star Wars prequels, are there any writers and directors that you think could have improved the films in terms of quality? Right, let's narrow this question down a bit. Star Wars The Phantom Menace came out in, was it 1999 to the year 2000, and Revenge of the Sith came out in 2005. So let's just, for argument's sake, let's find prolific filmmakers from that era, the early 2000s and the late 90s, who realistically at the time could have done the Star Wars prequel trilogy. Let's not say, or Neil Blomkamp, or who else? Taika Waititi, because they were they only really found their way onto the scene in the past 6 or 7 years, and way after the Star Wars prequel trilogy came out. So let's just narrow down the field to 1997 to 2005. So let's go for that. So that they've got 2 years to make The Phantom Menace, and then the rest of the trilogy will follow suit. So let's think of some filmmakers from that time. So after sitting on this question for quite a bit, Sir Dean Jones of Film Brits, 3 filmmakers come to mind. 3 filmmakers who would have done some similar work during that time, where I just think would have been fit for the franchise for Star Wars, and ones who I think realistically could have done it if George Lucas had relented, or maybe let somebody else do it, or maybe if they'd asked them at the time they would have said yes. Who knows? But first one is obviously Steven Spielberg. Obviously, the guy was busy in 1998, 1999, working on Saving Private Ryan and all of his Jurassic Park 2 and all of that stuff. But Steven Spielberg, long-time collaborator with George Lucas, in my opinion, the best filmmaker of all time. Just an incredible storyteller. Great technical filmmaker, great emotional storyteller. I think that the guy is the absolute package who has worked in every single genre imaginable and has hit it out of the park almost every single time. I think that Steven Spielberg is the best filmmaker ever. He is my personal idol and inspiration. He is just somebody who I would kill to meet one day, and I think that he would have done a fantastic job on the Star Wars franchise. I would love to see him tackle a Star Wars story spin-off film or an actual episodic chapter in the near future. The guy has still got some life left in him. He's a fantastic director. I think I also want to see him do more animated stuff after the the Adventures of Tintin, The Secret of the Unicorn. I think the guy's absolutely awesome, and I think he would have taken the Star Wars baton, and he would have been respectful to George Lucas. He probably would have kept the same story, but he would have put his own spin on it, and I think that he would have just immediately elevated the project just with his presence and his sheer talent. I think that the technical ability of the prequels are great looking and sounding films. No one's disputing that. They really pushed push the boundaries of what filmmaking could achieve and do, and all the special effects and all the sound. They really did push boundaries technically, and I think that Steven Spielberg would have used those resources at Industrial Light and Magic and Skywalker Sound to continue to do that. I just think that maybe he would have added much more emotional edge to the film. He would have made us care more about the characters, and I think that George Lucas is not a very emotional filmmaker. At least he's not anymore. Maybe he was back in the 70s and the 80s when he was making Star Wars, but he kind of seems to have lost that in recent years, and I think Steven Spielberg would have brought that to the table. The second pick I'm going to say is Robert Zemeckis, because this would have been before his weird motion capture fixation with the Polar Express and Beowulf and everything. After Forrest Gump, which was 95, 94, he didn't direct a film until he worked on Contact in 97, and then after Contact he didn't direct a film until 2000 with What Lies Beneath and Castaway, so he would have had time to have done The Phantom Menace, and that's easy. And the guy in the 90s and the early 2000s was still a phenomenal live-action storyteller. Back to the Future, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Castaway, of course, and Forrest Gump. But the guy would have, much like Steven Spielberg, the guy was on the cusp before it was technically possible at the time. Forrest Gump was a technically revolutionary film with all of its incredible special effects, getting Lieutenant Dan to lose his legs, and which is a very convincing effect. All the great green screen work. I think it won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects in the year it came out. So the guy probably would have, George Lucas would have been like, yeah, you use all of my resources and make an awesome Star Wars film. The guy has worked in science fiction before, like I said, with Back to the Future, and I just think that maybe in the late 90s he would have maybe a co-director. I don't know. He's never worked on a film as big as Star Wars, at least in terms of scope and scale. Even to this day, with his motion capture films. He's not worked on a film as big as Star Wars. Like Back to the Future is possibly the biggest film. Oh no, Back to the Future and Forrest Gump are easily the biggest films that he's ever worked on, but they were relatively early into his career, and he's not really done anything as big in terms of scale since, so who knows how he would have handled a Star Wars film, but I think it would have been the right time. So yeah, I think that Robert Zemeckis would have been very ideal. And the third one I'm going to pick, maybe a little bit outside of the box, but I'm going to go for Luc Besson, because in 1997 he directed the Fifth Element, and then in 1999 he worked on the Messenger, the story of Joan of Arc, which is not a great film. So let's say he didn't work on the story of Joan of Arc, and he instead worked on Star Wars, The Phantom Menace. And after working on The Fifth Element, the guy's a very stylistic filmmaker. He's worked in sci-fi. He has worked on a big, epic studio project with The Fifth Element, and with big name actors, and with big emotions, and with big spectacle. I think that if there was the headline in 1997 or 1998 saying the director of The Fifth Element will tackle the next Star Wars movie, I think people wouldn't have really lost their shit over it. I think they would have thought that's quite a logical choice. I think in that time Luc Besson would have been a very good choice to work on Star Wars The Phantom Menace. Whether or not he would work on more films after that, I don't know. And before you ask, no, I have not seen the trailer for Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. I know that there is a trailer and a poster, I've just not seen it. I've not even been deliberately avoiding it, I've just not watched it. You know, I'm going to watch it right now. I'll report back in a moment, letting you know what I think of it. Okay, kudos for using Because by the Beatles in your trailer, because put the Beatles in anything and I'll be very, very happy. As for that trailer, that wasn't really anything mind-blowing. I don't really know why we put Cara Delevingne in movies despite her not displaying a single emotion in her entire on-screen career. Didn't really get any sense of plot, but it was a teaser, so yeah, looks alright. Looks very Avatar meets Fifth Element, which isn't really a bad thing, but hey. So maybe the guy could have done Star Wars if the trailer for Valerian is anything to go by. So yeah, I know that was a massive diversion. So yeah, I think that Steven Spielberg, Robert Zemeckis, and Luc Besson would be three realistic choices in terms of directing them at the time. In terms of who would direct it nowadays, Neil Blomkamp. Let's go for Robert Zemeckis again because the guy's still working. And let's of course go for Steven Spielberg because that guy, he can do no wrong in my opinion. So next question comes from Anne Neubauer, who asks, are there any foreign language films you are anticipating? Right, I get a lot of flack for this on Facebook, and deservedly so, but foreign language films are very, very rarely anywhere near my radar. I find out mostly about foreign language films through how most people find out about foreign language films, which one get nominated for the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film. And that is an absolute blind spot for me. So I have no idea what high-profile foreign language films are coming out in the near future, or apart from Son of Saul, there's not really any foreign language films I know about this year. I'm kind of... What I see at the cinema is very much dictated by what is released at my local cinema. And very, very rarely do foreign language films actually play at my local Cineworld. I kind of rely on Cineworld because I've got a Cineworld card. Otherwise, I would just not be able to afford to go to see all of the movies that I do and do reviews for them for this. Basically, it would cost too much for me to do it. So I'm kind of dictated by what Cineworld shows. And unless it's like for example, Cineworld next year are going to be re-releasing Ghost in the Shell, the Japanese anime, as well as doing a one-day screening of the next Yu-Gi-Oh movie. Unless it's something like animated like that, it's very, very rare that I'll be able to watch a foreign language film. I'll try and check them out on DVD when I can. Like, I know I've still got to watch Son of Saul, but I think that really the last big foreign language movie I watched is probably, it might even be cheating, but it might be The Wind Rises, the Studio Ghibli film, the final film by Hayao Miyazaki. Miyazaki? That sounds like a food. Hayao Miyazaki. That was a film I watched in Japanese with English subtitles in the cinema. So yeah, it's a massive blind spot. So sorry to disappoint you, Anne Newbell, but maybe you can tell me what foreign language films are coming up that I should be keeping an eye on, because it's just an area that I don't know enough about, which is very Very annoying, probably, for you asking that question. So, sorry to disappoint. But next question comes from Winter, who is talking about something that I do know about. Winter asks, you've spoken about the animated Thunderbird series recently, but I wanted to know what you thought of some other WETA properties. Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, King Kong, and their forays into other children's animation properties like Jane and the Dragon. Just referencing that last one, Jane and the Dragon, I've not watched it. I've heard very good things, and I've seen a couple of clips, and it looks really interesting. I've just not checked that one out. However, in terms of the other ones, I think that their work on Lord of the Ring, their work on Thunderbirds has been really good as well. I like the practical settings and the miniatures mixed with the CGI characters and the CGI crafts and machines. I think that's a really interesting and novel idea, and I think it helps give that tangibility to the series that it's always had. But in terms of other WETA properties like Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, I think, are just all spectacular, with the exception of the Battle of the Five Armies, which is probably the weakest of the six, and I gave that a 7 out of 10. So when your weakest is a 7 out of 10, that's a pretty damn good franchise. I think that what Peter Jackson and everybody at WETA Productions or WETA's workshop, they have basically revolutionised special effects around the same time that George Lucas did for the Lord of the Rings trilogy. The Star Wars trilogy and the Lord of the Rings trilogy were coming out at a time, and they were both pioneering special effects in very different ways, but in ways that, and their impact is still being felt today. And I think that they've got different departments. Like they've got bigatures, which are just very, very large miniature models that just sometimes take up entire rooms for buildings, and then they film around those, and then they put their actors on top of them, and they use that for Lord of the Rings and for King Kong. And I very much like Thunderbirds. I love how they do build these real things and then they incorporate them digitally into their films. It was something I wish that maybe they did more of for The Hobbit, but that was a production nightmare for Warner Brothers and for Peter Jackson, because Guillermo del Toro left the project, and Warner Brothers was like, no, you cannot start from the ground up again. You've got to basically work on this, Peter Jackson, and we're still going to give you that exact same deadline that Del Toro had, even though he has had plenty of time to work on the pre-production, and your visions are very, very different, which is very, very unfair. But WETA have done incredible work, like CGI work for other films such as Krampus and Elysium and District 9 and Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and their motion capture workshops as well, with Andy Serkis. It's all just amazing, and they've done incredible work over the past 15, 20 years. I know that they've been working for longer and working on a lot of films in the 90s, but it was really with their work with Peter Jackson, Lord of the Rings, that really propelled them into the spotlight, and for good reason. It's incredible work, and they won so many Oscars, deservedly so. WETA Workshop, WETA Digital, all do great work. I hugely admire them, and if you want to see all of the stuff that they did, I highly recommend you check out the Lord of the Rings extended editions on DVD, not just to watch the extended versions of the films, but because they've got 15 hours of special features on each film. So it's basically an entire semester of film school if you were to get a box set of all three extended editions, because they just teach you all about the pre-production, all about the production, all about the post-production. It is an entire semester of film school in a box, and I highly, highly recommend checking it out. And you just seen all the incredible work that WETA did. It blows me away. And so to answer your question, Winter, WETA have done incredible work in terms of their properties like King Kong. Their films don't have as solid a track record as their technical departments. I think King Kong, you need to lose an hour from that film, and it's a truly great film. Although I am looking forward to that 3-disc Blu-ray set that they're going to be bringing out next year. Fingers crossed it comes to the UK, because like I said, I love at least knowing all the work that WETA did working on these films, even if I don't love the films themselves. So yeah, WETA, great job. Just keep doing whatever they're doing. I'm looking forward to what their next big project is going to be on the big screen. Okay, folks, now it's time for the lightning round, much to the chagrin of one particular listener. So basically, I put the invite out on Twitter or on Facebook saying I'm doing lightning round questions, and then I get 60 seconds to answer every single question. I think I got like 18 Twitter notifications. Some of them were responses and retweets from other stuff, so hopefully it's not 18 questions. But I'll try and answer maybe like 7 or 8, so let's get the ball rolling. So 60 seconds starts now. Lighton Sewell asks, do you think Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man / Peter Parker would have worked in the MCU? Honestly, no, and it's got nothing to do with Andrew Garfield. It's just that his Spider-Man Peter Parker didn't even work in the films that he was currently in, let alone in a very, very different stylistically approached film like the Amazing Spider-Man films. Andrew Garfield, I think, could make a very good Spider-Man. It would just be a later in the game Peter Parker when he's more confident, when he's got his powers and he knows how to use them and he's mastered them. Like, say, recent era Peter Parker after the Goblin City arc, or after the spectacular the Superior Spider-Man arc, where he's very comfortable in his own skin and he knows what he's doing. Andrew Garfield is just that kind of confident actor, and I just don't think that that's right for a Peter Parker Spider-Man origin story. He's just Peter Parker is just too perfect in those films, and it just fundamentally undermines the character. Even though Andrew Garfield, I know, really, really respected the part in the character and the franchise. So, next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Jason Voorhees, 2011, asks, what kind of Star Wars anthology films would you like to see in the future? I've pitched these ones before. I think it was in episode 6 when I pitched my own anthology film. Basically, one about the Rancor and his trainer, an Obi-Wan film, and just for fun, let's go for... No, yeah, I'm just going to stick with those two. The Obi-Wan one and the Rancor and his trainer film. Those are the two. I've already talked about it. Go back to episode 6. Next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Ross Farrell asks, The Simpsons movie is the last good installment of the franchise. Thoughts? I'll reword your question. I think it's the last great installment of the franchise. In terms of good, they still deliver with their Treehouse of Horror stuff. Outside of that, The Simpsons has been just... I guess the pigsty since the movie. To be fair, I've not watched the last season. I've not watched the season before because I just gave up on the series because it was so bad. I think that maybe people have been saying that it's now gotten slightly better, but it's just still nowhere near the golden age of The Simpsons, and it just needs to die. It needs to stop. Just stop doing this, because it was getting to a stage where there were literally 3 plot lines. Homer and Marge get into an argument and break up. Lisa meets a celebrity who bigs up her ego, and 3, something to do with Moe. Those were the 3 plot lines that basically comprised 5 years of The Simpsons, and it was just the death nail. That was it. So, next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Richard McGee asks, what are some of your thoughts nowadays on the X Factor and any other reality TV or talent show? I hate them. I think that not only are they just terrible, lazy television, but having actually worked behind the scenes on a show like this, I won't name names or say anything or what it was, but it's made me hate it even more, even though the money was quite good. That's probably why many people work on them. Most of it's staged, it's entirely producer driven, there are headsets and earbuds everywhere telling people what to do, what to react and how to say and how to do things. The judges or the celebrities who claim to be fostering or nurturing or tutoring these people don't give a shit about them, and they will abandon them at the first possible opportunity. And I actually saw this firsthand on something that I was working on. I just can't really name names. And also, it's also, or let's just give somebody a year-long contract, but we know that next year we're going to be doing another talent show, so let's just throw these people under the bus and work on the next person standing in line. It's a cancer on the music industry, and I have no qualms of saying that term. Okay, next question. 3, 2, 1, go. It comes from Miles the Junkman. What's your most dreaded film of 2017? Oh, God. Right, Transformers The Last Night is one. Sing technically comes out in January 2017, so let's go for Sing. 50 Shades Darker. Those are the 3. Transformers The Last Night, 50 Shades Darker, and Sing. Those are the 3. I don't really have much more to add to that answer, unfortunately. So, next question. 3, 2, 1, go. Graham Williamson asks, what's better, The Girl Who Waited or The Waters of Mars? Oh my god, don't make me choose. Those are 2 of my favourite stories. I'm not even exaggerating, and they're very good. They're very good for very similar reasons. It's the last 10 to 15 minutes that just rip me apart emotionally. I can't choose. Even with a gun to my head, I would really have a hard time choosing. Okay, let's go for The Girl Who Waited. because The Waters of Mars had a fantastic ending and a great lead into the end of time. But then when the End of Time Part 1 opens, it kind of feels like a lot of what Waters of Mars was building up was slightly negated. I think the End of Time Part 1 needed to take place immediately after the events of the Waters of Mars to make that ending really, really stick and last long term. The Girl Who Waited to be much more standalone, thus carries the bigger long-term emotional gut punch, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go for The Girl Who Waited, but The Waters of Mars, in terms of just that hour of television, is just as good. Okay, next question. 3, 2, 1, go. Matthew Jasper asks, what do you think is going to make more money at the box office, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 or Spider-Man Homecoming? I think Guardians of the Galaxy 2. In terms of box office for the film, yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy 2. In terms of merchandising, I think that Guardians of the Galaxy 2 as well, because they will have Baby Groot and Rocket. I think Spider-Man Homecoming is going to make a lot of money, but we may be seeing a bit of a Spider-Man burnout, and it will also depend on what we see in the next few trailers. Although Spider-Man Homecoming does have Iron Man, and every single movie that has had Iron Man in it since the Avengers has made over $1 billion, so who knows? I think that maybe if Spider-Man Homecoming is an incredible film, then the sequel that was announced for 2019 could break $1 billion or could make more than a Guardians of the Galaxy film. But I think in terms of just next year, I think Guardians has much more momentum behind it, and it has a very different feel from the rest of the universe. Okay, next question. 3, 2, 1, go. Adam Mormon asks, favourite Darth Vader scene? Off the top of my head. Okay, it would have to be from the original trilogy. I find your lack of faith disturbing is a great moment. Oh, right, got it. I can't remember exactly when in the film this takes place. It is in The Empire Strikes Back, and it's when he's talking to the Admiral on the screen, and I think they say that the Millennium Falcon has escaped. So, and then he just starts dying on the monitor, he starts choking, and then he falls. And then the guy next to him starts like saying, yeah, we'll track them down. And then Darth Vader says, I know you will, Admiral. Like, he's just promoted him. He's killed the guy, and then has immediately promoted the guy next to him to, like, just... That is such a dick move, but it's a real awesome power play. And the fact that it happened, they weren't even in the same room, and you feel the power and the presence of Darth Vader, that's my favourite scene. Okay, next question. 3, 2, 1, go. Saint Nick asks, what's the most surprising film you've seen this year, and what are you looking forward to next year? What am I looking forward to next year? Obviously the Marvel films, Thor Ragnarok, Baywatch, let's go for that. The most surprising film I've seen this year, I've not really had a surprise. If anything, I've been a little bit let down by some of the films. Like Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, I was expecting a little bit more from, even though I did really, really like the film. Right, I'm just going through the list of all of the films that I have reviewed this past year. I was surprised by Goosebumps. I wasn't expecting much from that, but that one really surprised me. I was a bit let down by Kung Fu Panda 3. Eye in the Sky, that came out of nowhere, and that was really good. Green Room disappointed me. Sing Street came out of nowhere. Money Monster disappointed me. The BFG disappointed me. Star Trek Beyond really surprised me. So yeah, I've just run through a load of random stuff, so hopefully one of those answers is adequate enough for you, and as my minute has expired. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, go. Marco Portuondo asks, what is your opinion on the Austin Powers movies? I need to revisit International Man of Mystery. I've not seen that for quite some time, but The Spy Who Shagged Me is a really, really funny comedy. It is a film that at one point me and my friends at school could just quote verbatim. I think Goldmember is not quite as good, but it is still really funny, and Michael Caine is just a perfect casting as Austin Powers' father. And the spy car being a mini fat bastard. Goldmember just obsessed with eating his flaking skin is a really, really weird thing. My Vinky was a key. Yeah, I think that the Austin Power films are really, really good. I don't really think they need to come back. I think they are a snapshot of the time, and I think if they're going to be doing a new one, I think it would have to be a complete upending, and you would have to get Mike Myers, and it would have to draw attention to the fact that he is much older than he was before, so that might be how to do it. But okay, next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Nick Payne asks, which summer 2017 movie are you looking forward to the most, and why? Oh, I feel like I might have answered this before. for with my trailer, and also what am I looking forward to next year from Saint Nick. And let's go for Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I kind of have hopes for Wonder Woman because of that trailer, but I just know that I'm going to get hurt again. War for the Planet of the Apes, Spider-Man Homecoming. Those are really the ones. I'm hoping that The Mummy is good, but once again the trailer's not really giving me anything. So let's say Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and War for the Planet of the Apes. Okay, next question. Let's just find it first. 3, 2, 1, go. Which 5 Star Wars characters would you want to fight a giant space monster with? That comes from Castleman. Which 5 Star Wars characters would you want to fight a giant space monster with? I'm guessing that's a kind of maybe a reference to Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Okay, I would want Luke because of the Force. I'm going to go just for the films. I'm not going to go for like Star Killer from the games or anything from the comics or whatever. So let's go for Luke Skywalker. Let's go for Yoda. I think General Grievous might be very, very handy in a pinch because he kind of feels like the guy who would have an escape route ready at a moment's notice. Who else we got? Obi-Wan. Are they allowed to be already dead? That's a tough one. Darth Vader might kill me, so I don't know if he would be the right choice. And let's go for Poe Dameron. Yeah, let's go for those 5. Okay, let's find the next question because a few people were responding to each other in the comments. Oh, that's actually it. That's all of them. I got through the entire lightning round. Hooray! So, a bit of a longer podcast than normal, so sorry about that, but thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to support the podcast financially and also ask questions, which I'll give in-depth answers to, you can go to my Patreon, patreon.com/Trilby. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes and leave a review as well. That would be very much appreciated. I also have my website, www.trilby.com, where I do my written reviews. You can follow me on Twitter at Trilby Reviews. So, have fun with all of that, and I shall see you folks next time. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Film Brits. Catch you next time.